In a faraway galaxy, there was a planet named Kalan. This planet was home to an ancient race known as the Kalans. They were wise beings who had lived for thousands of years. The Kalans spent much of their time studying the stars and learning about other civilizations. Over time, they came to understand many secrets of the universe. One of those secrets was about humans. Long before humans had even begun exploring space, the Kalans had seen glimpses of their future. Their elders often spoke of Earth's people with a mix of awe and fear. Humans are invincible, the elders would say during gatherings. But their invincibility comes at a cost, not just to them, but to everyone around them. Roberta sat in a large hall on Kalan, listening intently to one such elder. She was a young historian from Earth, invited to attend a conference between different alien species. It was her first time meeting the Kalans, and she found their culture fascinating. But when the elder mentioned humans, Roberta couldn't help but roll her eyes. To her, the idea that humans were somehow dangerous or unstoppable sounded like old myths. After all, humanity had only recently started venturing into space. How could anyone think they posed a threat? The elder continued speaking, his voice calm but firm. "We have warned others like you before," he said. "Do not meddle with Earth. Do not provoke its people. Their drive knows no bounds, and their ambition blinds them to consequences." He paused, looking directly at Roberta. "They do not listen, and when they don't, disasters follow." Roberta shifted uncomfortably in her seat. She wanted to argue, to tell him how wrong he was, but something stopped her. Maybe it was the way he spoke, with such certainty, or maybe it was the look in his glowing eyes. Whatever it was, it made her uneasy. Back on Earth, Roberta's brother Nathan was busy planning humanity's next big step into space. Unlike Roberta, Nathan wasn't interested in history or cautionary tales. He cared about progress. As a successful entrepreneur, he had built a company that specialized in advanced space technology. Now, he was preparing to send a fleet of ships farther into the galaxy than ever before. His goal was simple: find new resources, make contact with alien life, and establish humanity's dominance among the stars. Nathan gathered his team in a sleek control room filled with monitors and flashing lights. Among them was Emily, a skilled engineer who had worked on the ship's designs. She was smart and practical, always thinking 2 steps ahead. But lately, she'd been feeling uneasy about the mission. There were rumors floating around, whispers of hostile aliens and mysterious planets. Some crew members joked about these stories, but Emily didn't laugh. Something about this trip felt off. As the launch date approached, Nathan held a press conference to announce their plans. Reporters crowded around him, eager to hear about humanity's bold new adventure. Cameras flashed as Nathan grinned confidently. "This is our moment," he declared. "A chance to show the universe what we're capable of. We won't let anything stand in our way." Roberta watched the broadcast from her apartment, shaking her head. She thought about the Kalan elder's words again. For a brief moment, doubt crept into her mind. Was Nathan being too reckless? Could humanity really handle whatever lay beyond the stars? She shook off the thought quickly. Her brother had always been ambitious, and so far, nothing had stopped him. Why should this be any different? Little did anyone know, the Kalans weren't the only ones watching humanity's rise. In the vastness of space, other eyes observed silently, waiting to see what Earth's people would do next. The journey into deep space began with excitement and hope. Nathan's fleet of ships soared through the galaxy, their engines humming with power. The crew worked tirelessly, monitoring systems and charting their course. Emily moved between stations, checking readings and making adjustments. Despite her earlier unease, she tried to focus on the mission. After all, this was humanity's chance to explore the unknown. Still, there was a nagging feeling in the back of her mind that she couldn't shake. Days turned into weeks, and the ships traveled farther from Earth than any human had ever gone before. The crew grew closer, sharing stories and laughter during breaks. But one evening, As the stars shimmered outside the windows, something unusual happened. A strange signal appeared on their scanners, a faint but steady pulse coming from a nearby planet. At first, the crew thought it might be interference or a malfunction. But when they analyzed the signal, they realized it wasn't random. It was a message. Nathan called everyone to the main control room. "This is it," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "Our first contact with alien life." He ordered the ships to change course and head toward the source of the signal. Emily hesitated, glancing at the data on her screen. The signal seemed harmless enough, but something about it felt unnatural. She didn't say anything, though. Instead, she followed orders and helped guide the ships closer. When they reached the planet, they found themselves face to face with the Kalins. The aliens were tall and slender, with smooth, silver skin that shimmered in the light. Their eyes glowed softly, giving them an otherworldly appearance. The humans stared in awe as the Kalins approached their ships. Through a translator device, the leader of the group introduced himself as Eldrin. "Why have you come here?" Eldrin asked, his tone calm but firm. Nathan stepped forward, smiling confidently. "We're explorers," he explained. "We've come to learn about your people and share knowledge." Eldrin studied him for a moment, then shook his head. "You should not be here," he said. "Leave now while you still can." The room fell silent. No one had expected such a reaction. Nathan frowned, taken aback by the hostility. "We mean no harm," he replied. "We're peaceful. Surely we can work together." Eldrin's expression didn't change. "Your kind always says that," he said, "but your actions speak differently. You push too far, take too much. And when things go wrong, you blame others." Emily watched the exchange carefully. She noticed how tense the Kalins seemed, their glowing eyes flickering with unease. Whatever their reasons, they clearly didn't want humans around. But Nathan wasn't ready to give up. "Look," he said, trying to sound reasonable. "We're just starting out. We don't know everything yet. That's why we're here, to learn." Eldrin sighed, stepping closer to Nathan. "Then listen carefully," he said. "There are places in this galaxy you must never go. Things you must never touch. If you ignore our warnings, you will bring destruction upon yourselves, and perhaps the entire galaxy." Roberta sat in her quarters later that night, replaying the encounter in her mind. She had received a transmission from Nathan, updating her on what had happened. His tone had been dismissive, brushing off the Kalins' concerns as paranoia. But Roberta wasn't so sure. She remembered the Elder's words back on Kalan. Asterisk humans are invincible, but their invincibility comes at a cost asterisk. Meanwhile, aboard the ship, tensions began to rise. Some crew members agreed with Nathan, believing the Kalins were overreacting. Others, like Emily, weren't convinced. What if they're right? She asked during a quiet moment with Nathan. "What if we're walking into something we don't understand?" Nathan waved her off. "We'll be fine," he said. "We've got the best technology, the smartest people. Nothing can stop us." Emily wanted to argue, but she knew it wouldn't do any good. Nathan had made up his mind, and nothing would change it. As the ships prepared to leave Kalan space, Eldrin's final warning echoed in Emily's mind. She glanced out the window at the distant stars, wondering what lay ahead. For the first time since the mission began, she felt truly afraid. Back on Earth, news of humanity's first contact with the Kalins spread like wildfire. People were thrilled, celebrating what they saw as a major step forward for the species. Politicians gave speeches praising Nathan and his team, calling them heroes who had opened the door to a new era of exploration. Social media buzzed with excitement, and interviews with crew members became must-watch television. Everyone wanted to know more about the mysterious aliens and the strange planet they called home. Roberta watched it all unfold from her apartment, feeling conflicted. She had written an article based on Nathan's report, but she left out Eldrin's warnings. Something about those words, the Kalan leader's serious tone, made her hesitate. Would anyone even believe her if she included them? The public was too caught up in the excitement to listen to cautionary tales. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that something important was being overlooked. Nathan, on the other hand, was basking in the glory. He held press conferences, posed for photos, and gave interviews about the mission. Reporters hung on his every word as he described the Kalins and their planet. "They're peaceful," he said, brushing off concerns. "A little cautious, maybe, but nothing we can't handle." His confidence reassured people, and soon, any doubts about the mission faded away. But aboard the ship, things weren't so simple. Emily noticed a growing divide among the crew. Some, like Nathan, believed the Kalins were overreacting, and that humanity could handle whatever came next. Others, however, shared Emily's unease. They talked quietly during breaks, wondering if they should have listened to Eldrin's warning. What if he was telling the truth? One crew member asked during dinner, "What if there really is something dangerous out there?" Emily didn't have an answer, but she kept thinking about the Kalins' glowing eyes and the way they had seemed so tense. It wasn't just fear. It was something deeper, like they knew something no one else did. She tried to focus on her work, running tests and checking systems, but her mind kept drifting back to Eldrin's words. "Asterisk, there are places you must never go, asterisk," he had said. "Asterisk, things you must never touch, asterisk." Despite the unease among some crew members, the ships continued their journey. Nathan was determined to push forward, eager to prove that humanity could succeed where others might fail. He pointed the fleet toward a cluster of stars that had shown unusual energy readings. Scientists back on Earth were excited, speculating that the area might hold valuable resources or advanced technology. For Nathan, it was the perfect opportunity to make history. As they traveled, Roberta reached out to Emily through a secure communication channel. "How's everything going?" she asked cautiously. Emily hesitated before responding. "It's fine," she said finally. "But I don't think we should ignore the Kalins' warning. Something feels wrong." Roberta sighed. "I know what you mean," she admitted, "but no one here wants to hear it. They're too busy celebrating." She paused, then added, "Be careful, okay? Trust your instincts." Emily nodded, even though Roberta couldn't see her. She appreciated the advice, but she wasn't sure how much good it would do. Nathan was in charge, and he wasn't the kind of person to second-guess himself. If anything, he seemed more determined than ever to prove that humanity was unstoppable. The ships eventually reached their destination, a massive structure floating in orbit around a distant planet. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, its surface covered in intricate carvings that glowed faintly in the starlight. The crew gathered in the control room, staring at the sight on their screens. "This is it," Nathan said, his voice filled with awe. "This could be the discovery of a lifetime." Emily studied the structure closely, noticing the symbols etched into its surface. They looked ancient, almost like warnings. Her stomach tightened as she realized what they might mean. But before she could say anything, Nathan gave the order to move closer. The ships approached the structure slowly, their sensors scanning for any signs of danger. As they drew nearer, Emily felt a chill run down her spine. Something about the structure felt alive, like it was watching them. She glanced at Nathan, hoping he would reconsider, but his expression was set. Whatever happened next, there was no turning back now. As the crew prepared for the perilous journey back, Emily took a moment to herself. Staring out a window at the endless expanse of stars, she whispered a silent prayer. She didn't know if they could succeed, but she vowed to try, for humanity's sake. Behind her, the hum of the ship grew louder, almost mocking. The devourer was waiting. The crew's first close look at the massive structure left them speechless. It was enormous, far bigger than any of their ships, and its surface shimmered with an eerie light. The carvings covering it were intricate, forming patterns that seemed to shift slightly when viewed from different angles. Some of the symbols glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Emily stared at the screens, her unease growing stronger with every passing second. She couldn't shake the feeling that this thing wasn't just an object. It was alive, or at least connected to something far beyond their understanding. Nathan, however, was too focused on the potential rewards to notice the warning signs. "This is incredible," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "Imagine what we could learn from this. The technology alone could change everything." He turned to the crew. "Start scanning. I want to know everything about this place, what it's made of, how it works, and what's inside." Emily hesitated. "Nathan, maybe we should be careful," she said quietly. "Those carvings, they look like warnings. What if this isn't something we're supposed to touch?" Her word hung in the air, met with silence. A few crew members exchanged uneasy glances, but most avoided her gaze altogether. They didn't want to challenge Nathan, not when he was so determined. "We'll be fine," Nathan replied without looking at her. "We've come this far. We can't just turn back now." His tone was firm, leaving no room for argument. Emily clenched her jaw but didn't push further. Instead, she focused on her work, running scans and analyzing data. As the results came in, her fears only deepened. The structure emitted strange energy readings, unlike anything they had encountered before. It seemed to react to their presence, as if it knew they were there. Meanwhile, Roberta sat in her office on Earth, scrolling through images sent by the crew. The structure was breathtaking, but something about it made her skin crawl. She zoomed in on the carvings, studying the symbols carefully. They reminded her of the Kalen's warnings, though she couldn't explain why. She reached out to Nathan, asking him to proceed cautiously, but her message went unanswered. He was too busy directing the team. Back aboard the ship, the crew began deploying drones to explore the structure up close. The machines hovered near the surface, sending back detailed footage of the glowing carvings. One of the symbols caught Emily's attention, a spiral design surrounded by jagged lines. It looked familiar, like something she had seen in old human myths about forbidden knowledge. She showed it to Nathan, hoping he would reconsider. "Look at this," she said. "It's like a warning. Maybe we shouldn't go any farther." Nathan glanced at the image briefly before dismissing it. "Every civilization has its superstitions," he said. "That doesn't mean we stop exploring. We're here to uncover the truth, not let fear hold us back." With that, he ordered the team to send a landing party to investigate the structure directly. Emily volunteered to join the group, despite her misgivings. She told herself it was better to be there in person, where she could monitor things closely. The others followed suit, each driven by curiosity or duty. As they suited up and prepared to leave the ship, Emily felt a sinking sensation in her chest. Something about this moment felt wrong, like they were stepping into a trap. When the landing party reached the structure, they found an entrance, a wide archway leading into darkness. The air inside was cool and still, carrying an odd metallic scent. Emily shone her flashlight ahead, revealing more carvings lining the walls. They depicted scenes of destruction, planets crumbling, stars exploding, and beings consumed by shadowy forms. Each image sent a chill down her spine. "This is insane," one of the crew members muttered. "Why would anyone build something like this?" "I don't think they built it," Emily replied softly. "I think they found it, and tried to warn others." Nathan ignored their comments, pressing deeper into the structure. At the center of the chamber, they discovered a pedestal glowing with the same energy detected earlier. It pulsed rhythmically, almost like it was breathing. Nathan stepped forward, reaching out to touch it. "Wait," Emily shouted, grabbing his arm. "You don't know what that thing does." But it was too late. As Nathan's hand brushed against the pedestal, the entire structure trembled. Lights flared, and a low hum filled the air. Emily pulled him back, her heart racing. Whatever they had awakened, it wasn't happy to see them. The moment Nathan touched the pedestal, everything changed. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the walls and shaking the ground beneath their feet. Emily grabbed his arm and yanked him back, her instincts screaming that they needed to leave, now. But it was too late. The glowing symbols on the walls flared brighter, casting sharp shadows across the chamber. A strange energy filled the air, crackling like static electricity. The crew froze, staring in shock as the pedestal began to rise slowly, revealing a dark void beneath it. "What did you do?" Emily demanded, her voice trembling. Nathan didn't answer. He stood frozen, his eyes wide with disbelief. None of them had expected this. They thought they were exploring an ancient artifact, not triggering something far beyond their understanding. The room felt alive now, pulsing with a presence that made their skin crawl. One of the crew members stumbled backward, muttering under his breath. "We need to get out of here," he said urgently. But before anyone could move, a deep, resonant voice echoed through the chamber. It wasn't coming from any one direction. It surrounded them, filling their minds as much as their ears. "Who dares disturb my rest?" the voice asked, cold and commanding. Emily's breath caught in her throat. She glanced at the others, but they looked just as terrified as she felt. Nathan swallowed hard, trying to regain his composure. We didn't mean to intrude," he stammered. "We're explorers. We came here to learn." The voice responded with a low chuckle, sending shivers down their spines. "Explorers," it repeated mockingly. "You are no different from the others who came before you. Always seeking, never satisfied. Always taking, never understanding." The words hung heavy in the air, dripping with disdain. Emily tightened her grip on her flashlight, wishing she could wake up from this nightmare. But there was no waking up. This was real. Roberta, back on Earth, was reviewing the latest data sent by the crew when she noticed something alarming. The energy readings from the structure had spiked dramatically, far beyond anything safe or natural. Her heart sank as she realized what it might mean. She tried contacting the ship again, desperate to warn them, but the transmission wouldn't go through. Static filled the line, cutting her off completely. For the first time, she felt truly helpless. Inside the structure, the entity continued speaking, its tone growing darker. "You have awakened me," it said. "And now you will face the consequences." The crew exchanged panicked looks, unsure of what to do. Emily stepped forward cautiously, her voice steady despite her fear. "Please," she said. "We didn't know this would happen. We'll leave, and we won't come back. Just let us go." The entity paused, as if considering her words. Then it laughed, a sound so cold it made their blood run icy. "Leave?" it echoed. "You think it's that simple? You've already set events into motion. There is no turning back now." With that, the chamber began to shift. The carvings on the walls glowed brighter, forming new patterns that seemed to writhe and twist. Shadows moved unnaturally, stretching toward the crew like grasping hands. Nathan finally snapped out of his daze. "We need to get out of here," he shouted, grabbing Emily's arm and pulling her toward the exit. The others followed, their footsteps echoing loudly in the now unstable chamber. As they ran, the structure groaned around them, pieces of the ceiling crumbling and falling. Emily tripped over rubble, but quickly scrambled to her feet, adrenaline driving her forward. Behind them, the entity's laughter followed, growing louder and more menacing. When they reached the landing bay, the crew wasted no time boarding their shuttle. Emily took the controls, her hands shaking as she powered up the engines. Outside, the structure loomed ominously, its glow intensifying. Nathan stared at it, guilt warring with fear in his expression. "What have we done?" he whispered, almost to himself. Emily didn't answer. She focused on flying the shuttle back to the main ship, her mind racing. Whatever they had unleashed, it wasn't finished with them yet. As they ascended, the structure pulsed one last time, sending a wave of energy rippling outward. It hit the shuttle, jolting everyone inside. Emily fought to keep control, her knuckles white on the controls. Finally, they cleared the planet's orbit and docked with the fleet. Back aboard the main ship, the crew collapsed in exhaustion, their faces pale with terror. Emily slumped into a chair, her head spinning. Nathan paced anxiously, running a hand through his hair. For the first time since the mission began, he looked unsure of himself. What asterisk was asterisk that thing? He muttered, glancing at Emily as if she might have an answer. She shook her head, still trying to process everything. I don't know, she admitted. But whatever it is, it's not done with us. Unbeknownst to them, the entity, known only as the Devourer, was already spreading its influence, feeding on their ambition and fear. It had been imprisoned for eons, waiting for someone foolish enough to release it. Now, thanks to humanity's curiosity, it was free and hungry. The Devourer's presence lingered like a shadow over the fleet, even after the crew returned to the safety of their ships. Strange things started happening almost immediately. Equipment that had worked perfectly for months began malfunctioning without explanation. Lights flickered, alarms blared at random, and navigation systems gave erratic readings. The crew tried to fix the problems, but no matter what they did, the issues persisted. It was as if the ship itself had come alive, and it wasn't happy. Emily spent long hours in the engineering bay, trying to make sense of the chaos. She pored over diagnostics, searching for a logical cause, but everything pointed to one unsettling conclusion. Something unnatural was interfering with their systems. Meanwhile, Nathan paced the control room, his confidence crumbling under the weight of guilt and fear. He avoided eye contact with the crew, knowing he was responsible for this mess. Every creak of the ship or flicker of a light made him jump, his mind replaying the entity's cold laughter. Roberta, back on Earth, noticed the growing tension through fragmented messages from the fleet. Reports mentioned technical failures, unexplained phenomena, and rising panic among the crew. But there was something else, a darker thread running through the updates. Crew members described vivid nightmares, all eerily similar. They dreamed of shadowy figures reaching out to them, whispering words they couldn't understand but felt deep in their bones. Roberta's stomach churned as she pieced it together. Whatever her brother and his team had awakened, it wasn't confined to the structure. It had followed them. One night, Emily found herself unable to sleep. She lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling while the hum of the ship vibrated faintly around her. Just as she drifted off, a voice cut through the silence. Not aloud, but inside her mind. "You cannot escape me," it said, smooth and icy. Her eyes snapped open, and she sat up, heart pounding. For a moment, she thought she'd imagined it. But then she heard it again, clearer this time. "I see you, Emily." She bolted out of bed and hurried to the control room, hoping to find someone awake who could reassure her. Instead, she found Nathan sitting alone, staring blankly at the monitors. His face was pale, dark circles underlining his bloodshot eyes. When Emily entered, he looked up, startled. "Did you hear it too?" he asked hoarsely. Emily nodded, sinking into a nearby chair. "It's here," she whispered. "It's inside the ship." Nathan rubbed his temples, looking defeated. "What do we do? How do we stop it?" Emily shook her head. "I don't know, but we can't keep ignoring it. If we don't figure something out, it's going to destroy us." The two sat in silence, the weight of their situation pressing down on them. For the first time since the mission began, Nathan listened to Emily without arguing. He knew she was right. They were in over their heads. As the days passed, the disturbances grew worse. Shadows moved where there should have been none, and whispers echoed through empty corridors. Some crew members claimed to see glowing eyes watching them from the darkness. Fear spread quickly, breaking down discipline and morale. Arguments broke out, and several people begged to be sent home, forgetting they were light years away from Earth. The once unified team was fracturing under the strain. Then came the message from Eldrin. Roberta intercepted it during one of her late-night research sessions. The Kalam leader's voice was calm but urgent. "You have awakened what we could not contain," he said. "The Devourer feeds on ambition and arrogance. It will consume you unless you act swiftly." Roberta's hands trembled as she listened. She forwarded the message to Nathan, hoping it would shake him into action. When Nathan received the transmission, He called an emergency meeting. The crew gathered in the main hall, their faces pale and drawn. Nathan stood before them, his usual bravado replaced by grim determination. "We messed up," he admitted, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "But we can still fix this, if we work together." He outlined a plan based on fragments of information from Eldrin's warning and the crew's observations. They needed to isolate the Devourer and trap it again, cutting off its connection to the ship. Emily stepped forward, her expression resolute. "If we're going to do this," she said, "we'll need to go back to the structure. That's where it came from. And that's where we'll have to send it back." The room fell silent as everyone processed her words. No one wanted to return to that place, but they all knew she was right. The Devourer wouldn't leave them alone until they confronted it directly. The crew's decision to return to the structure was met with mixed reactions. Some were determined, ready to face whatever horrors awaited them in hopes of ending the nightmare. Others were filled with dread, their fear making every step feel heavier. Emily stood at the center of it all, trying to keep everyone focused. She knew that hesitation or doubt could cost them everything. Nathan, for his part, seemed quieter now, his usual confidence replaced by a grim sense of responsibility. He gave orders when needed but avoided drawing attention to himself, as if he couldn't bear the weight of his earlier mistakes. As the ships approached the structure again, an eerie calm settled over the fleet. The glowing carvings on its surface pulsed faintly, almost like it was waiting for them. Emily stared at it through the ship's windows, her stomach twisting into knots. "This feels wrong," she muttered under her breath. A nearby crew member nodded nervously. No one spoke openly about their fears, but the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Once they docked near the structure, the landing party prepared to go inside. This time, there was no excitement or curiosity driving them, only grim determination. Emily double-checked her equipment, ensuring she had everything they might need. Nathan joined her, his expression unreadable. "Let's get this over with," he said quietly. It wasn't much, but it was the closest thing to an apology Emily had heard from him since the mission began. Inside the structure, the atmosphere was even more oppressive than before. The walls seemed darker, the air colder. The glowing symbols flickered erratically, casting unsettling shadows across the chamber. Every sound echoed unnaturally, making even the softest footsteps seem deafening. Emily kept her flashlight trained ahead, scanning for any sign of movement. Behind her, the rest of the team stayed close, their weapons drawn despite knowing conventional tools wouldn't help against something like the Devourer. They reached the central chamber where the pedestal still stood, though it now radiated an ominous energy. The void beneath it pulsed rhythmically, as if breathing. Emily hesitated at the entrance, her instincts screaming at her to turn back. But she forced herself forward, reminding herself why they were here. "We need to figure out how to seal it," she whispered to Nathan. "There has to be a way." Nathan nodded, stepping closer to examine the pedestal. As he did, the entity's voice filled the chamber once more. "You return to me," it said, its tone dripping with mockery. "Do you think yourselves brave, or merely foolish?" Emily clenched her fists, refusing to let its words shake her resolve. "We're not afraid of you," she lied, her voice steadier than she felt. The Devourer chuckled, sending shivers down their spines. "You should be." Roberta, monitoring the situation from Earth, worked tirelessly to support the crew. She sifted through ancient texts and alien archives, searching for clues about the Devourer. Late one night, she found something, a fragment of Kalan lore describing a ritual to contain such entities. According to the text, someone would need to manually override the controls within the structure, using their own life force to seal the entity away. Her heart sank as she realized what this meant. She sent the information to Emily immediately, dreading the implications. When Emily received the message, she read it silently, her hands trembling. She understood what had to be done, and who would have to do it. The others argued fiercely when she revealed the plan, insisting there must be another way. But Emily remained firm. If I don't do this, none of us will make it out alive, she said, her voice breaking slightly. I can't ask anyone else to take this risk. Nathan stepped forward, guilt etched on his face. Emily, please, he pleaded. There has to be another solution. Emily shook her head, placing a hand on his shoulder. This is my choice, she said softly. Promise me you'll get everyone home safely. Before anyone could stop her, she turned and walked toward the pedestal, her steps steady despite the fear gripping her heart. As Emily approached the void, the Devourer's laughter grew louder, taunting her. She took a deep breath, focusing on the faces of her friends back on the ship. With trembling hands, she activated the override sequence, feeling the energy surge through her body. Pain shot through her limbs, but she held on, refusing to give in. Around her, the chamber began to shake violently, the carvings glowing brighter than ever before. Outside, the crew watched in horror as the structure trembled. Nathan shouted her name, tears streaming down his face. But Emily didn't look back. Her final thought was simple. I hope this works. Then, with a blinding flash of light, the chamber fell silent. The Devourer was gone, but so was Emily. The silence that followed Emily's sacrifice was deafening. The crew stood frozen, staring at the structure in stunned disbelief. For a moment, no one moved or spoke. Then, slowly, the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. Nathan clenched his fists, his body trembling with a mix of grief and guilt. He had pushed them into this mission, ignored every warning, and now Emily was gone because of it. Her voice echoed in his mind. Calm, steady, brave, even as she walked toward certain death. Roberta received the news back on Earth through a shaky transmission from the ship. She sat alone in her dimly lit office, tears streaming down her face as she listened to Nathan's broken explanation. She saved us, he said, his voice cracking. She gave everything so we could live. Roberta couldn't respond at first. Her chest felt hollow, like a part of her had been ripped away. Emily wasn't just a crew member. She was someone who cared deeply about doing the right thing. And now, she was gone. On board the ship, the mood was somber. The once bright hum of exploration had faded, replaced by an overwhelming sense of loss. Crew members gathered in small groups, sharing quiet words and memories of Emily. Some cried openly, while others stared blankly at the floor, unable to process what had happened. The weight of her sacrifice hung over them all, a reminder of how close they had come to destruction, and how much they owed her. Nathan retreated to his quarters after sending the message to Roberta. He sat on the edge of his bunk, staring at his hands as if they were stained with Emily's blood. Every decision he'd made since the start of the mission replayed in his mind, ignoring the Kalen's warnings, dismissing Eldrin's pleas, touching the pedestal without thinking. Each choice had led them closer to disaster, and now Emily had paid the ultimate price for his arrogance. He buried his face in his hands, overwhelmed by shame and regret. The journey back to Earth was long and quiet. No one celebrated their survival, not when it came at such a cost. Instead, the crew focused on repairing the damage done to the ships and preparing reports for those waiting back home. But even as they worked, the memory of Emily lingered. Her courage had saved them, but it also served as a stark reminder of humanity's limits. They weren't invincible, no matter what anyone believed. Sometimes, ambition came at too high a price. When the fleet finally returned to Earth, the world greeted them not with cheers but with solemn respect. News of Emily's sacrifice spread quickly, sparking debates about humanity's role in the universe. Many praised her bravery, calling her a hero who had protected the species from its own recklessness. Others questioned whether the mission had been worth it, pointing out the dangers of unchecked exploration. Nathan avoided the media spotlight, leaving others to explain what had happened. He knew he didn't deserve forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Roberta threw herself into work, determined to honor Emily's memory. She wrote articles, gave lectures, and advocated for stricter guidelines on space exploration. Her words carried weight, not only because of her expertise, but also because of her personal connection to the tragedy. "We must learn from this," she often said during interviews. "Emily taught us that progress isn't just about moving forward, it's about knowing when to stop." In private moments, Roberta found herself thinking about her brother. Nathan had changed since returning to Earth. Gone was the confident entrepreneur eager to conquer the stars. In his place was a man burdened by guilt, searching for redemption. He used his influence to promote caution and humility in future missions, urging humanity to respect the boundaries of other worlds. Though their relationship remained strained, Roberta saw glimpses of the person he used to be, a person trying to make amends. As time passed, humanity entered a new era of exploration, one marked by restraint rather than ambition. Statues were erected in Emily's honor, serving as reminders of the cost of hubris. Children learned her story in school, not as a tale of glory, but as a lesson in sacrifice and responsibility. And though the stars still called to humanity, people approached them with more care, mindful of the lessons written in the scars of the past. Years passed, and the story of Emily's sacrifice became a cornerstone of humanity's collective memory. It was more than just history. It was a lesson etched into the hearts of generations. Nathan spent much of his time traveling, speaking to scientists, politicians, and students about the dangers of unchecked ambition. His speeches were raw and honest, filled with regret and a plea for change. "We thought we were invincible," he would say, his voice heavy with emotion. "But we weren't, and if we don't learn from our mistakes, we'll keep making them." Roberta worked alongside him in her own way, dedicating her career to documenting humanity's encounters with alien civilizations. She wrote books, gave lectures, and served as an advisor for space exploration programs. Her goal was simple: to ensure that no one forgot what had happened. She believed that knowledge was humanity's greatest tool, and its best defense against repeating the past. Together, they helped reshape how people viewed exploration. Instead of rushing headlong into the unknown, humanity began to approach space with caution and respect. Missions were planned carefully, with input from experts in ethics, diplomacy, and science. Protocols were established to prevent another disaster like the one that had cost Emily her life. The galaxy remained vast and mysterious, but humanity now understood that not every mystery needed solving, and not every boundary should be crossed. Still, Nathan carried Emily's loss like a shadow, always present but rarely spoken of. He visited her memorial often, a quiet place overlooking the ocean, where a statue of her stood, gazing toward the stars. On those days, he allowed himself to feel the full weight of his guilt. He had been reckless, arrogant, and blind to the consequences of his actions. But he also knew that dwelling on the past wouldn't bring her back. What mattered now was ensuring her sacrifice hadn't been in vain. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Roberta joined him at the memorial. They stood side by side, neither speaking for a long time. Finally, she broke the silence. "Do you think she'd be proud of us?" she asked softly. Nathan hesitated before answering. "I think she'd be proud of you," he said. "You've done so much to make sure this never happens again." He paused, then added, "As for me, I'm still trying." Roberta placed a hand on his shoulder. "You've changed, Nathan. That counts for something." He nodded, though he didn't fully believe her words. Change felt small compared to the enormity of what he'd lost. Still, he appreciated her support. Without her, he might have given up entirely. Back on Earth, the lessons of Emily's sacrifice continued to shape humanity's future. New technologies were developed, not just for exploration, but for communication and understanding. Efforts were made to reach out to other civilizations, not as conquerors or exploiters, but as equals. The Kalans, once wary of humans, began to see them differently. Eldrin himself sent a message to Earth years later, acknowledging the progress humanity had made. "Perhaps there is hope for your kind after all," he said. It wasn't praise, exactly, but it was enough. Children grew up hearing stories of Emily's bravery, learning about the importance of humility and respect. Schools taught not only the triumphs of human achievement, but also the failures, the mistakes that had nearly destroyed everything. Humanity wasn't perfect, but it was learning. Slowly, painfully, it was becoming better. As stars twinkled above Earth, the galaxies seemed quieter, but not empty. Somewhere out there, ancient secrets still waited, untouched and undisturbed. Humanity knew now that some things were best left alone. And while the urge to explore would always remain, it was tempered by wisdom earned through sacrifice. In the end, Emily's legacy was more than a warning. It was a promise, a vow that humanity would strive to be worthy of the universe it sought to understand. Her name lived on, not as a symbol of tragedy, but as a beacon of hope. For in her courage, humanity found not just redemption, but a path forward, a path walked with care, humility, and gratitude.